One of my all-time favorite books is Max Brooks' World War Z. In fact, one of my all-time favorite moments ever is being at Comic-Con in 2007 in a panel where Max Brooks interviewed George Romero for an hour. It was an amazing sight to behold and one of my favorite con experiences of all time. And again, like I said, one of my favorite experiences of all time. So I was very happy. Very, very, very happy when Paramount decided to team up with Brad Pitt to make World War Z, and that its release date was 12/21/2012, arguably the end of the world, the day that planet Nibiru was meant to come into our atmosphere and take out 97% of the population, if you believe the YouTube videos that were going on for a while at the time. But the movie sought production delays, had a lot of problems, and ended up getting pushed back to June 2013, where it went on to gross a very modest $540 million worldwide haul. So the question is, whatever happened to World War Z 2? Whatever happened to the sequel? Well, apparently nothing, because Paramount has now pulled the plug on the World War Z sequel. Yeah, that's good, right? That's great. That's grand. That's awesome. That's amazing. Paramount. You'll make 5 Transformers movies. Okay, listen, I'll be fair here. Those have grossed over $1 billion, right? But yeah, not The Last Knight. The Last Knight didn't. I think it still did pretty well, which is why he did Bumblebee. But no, they've decided to pull the plug on World War Z 2, which would have just been, I think, World War Z. Again, they probably would have called it that, to be fair, considering that they were talking about making it more of a reboot rather than a sequel. But it says here that the playlist reports that Paramount has pulled the plug on World War Z 2, David Fincher's World War Z sequel. The death of the film follows the project's lack of momentum, possible budgeting issues. The original cost $190 million, and a seemingly tentative studio who never put the film on their schedule, especially after investing heavily in the upcoming Mission Impossible movies. Filming on the project was expected to begin in June 2019, with Brad Pitt set to reprise his role as Jerry Lane. Dennis Kelly Utopia was writing the script. Fincher and Pitt had worked together on 3 films before, including Seven, Fight Club, and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Here's the thing. Brad Pitt teaming up with David Fincher equals success. You can't argue that fact. Seven is still a very, very, very well-beloved movie in pop culture. Fight Club is a goddamn cultural phenomenon that 20 years later still holds up. And The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, while maybe not as popular or as adored as the previous 2, it's still a solid movie. Fincher himself is a fantastic, amazing director, one who's heavily sought after for a number of projects. Why the fuck isn't Paramount giving him the money for this movie? Like, Paramount, hey, listen, I know you like money. You made some of it with Mission Impossible and Bumblebee. You say now that that's a success. Your Star Trek franchise is effectively dead in the water outside of being on CBS All Access, where you're diving in headfirst into television territory, which is fine. But you're going to pull the plug on a franchise, a potentially huge franchise. For those of us who've read the book, right? It's a series of interviews that the author, in this case, if you listen to the audiobook, voiced by Max Brooks, who is the son of Mel Brooks, by the way, and looks just like him too, not even going to kid. He goes out there and interviews all these people who survived the apocalypse and tells their story. And each one of those stories could probably be their own movie. Or if they wanted to turn this into an anthology TV series, each one of those could have been their own episode. But there was a couple that could have easily been a larger narrative plot in a film. The Battle of Yonkers, for example. That narrated bit by Mark Hamill, talking about a horde of oncoming zombies in Yonkers, New York, and all of the military might not being able to actually take any impact on them whatsoever. It was an amazing bit in the book. Then there's also Henry Rollins as a security guard for a pop star or a debutante, a celebrity, and how his whole world comes crashing down and his boss gets killed and he escapes. It was an interesting book. And the movie wasn't like that, though. The movie followed United Nations employee Jerry Lane, who traverses the world in a race against time to stop a pandemic that is toppling armies and governments and threatening to decimate humanity itself. The cast also included Muriel Enos, Daniela Kurtzets, James Badge Dale, Matthew Fox, and David Morse. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. But $540 million on a $190 million budget, I would argue that the film was probably profitable to some extent. Was probably profitable to some minute extent. But Paramount's been going through so many problems over the course of the past couple of years that it makes sense that they don't want to commit to this. Right? The zombie genre isn't what it was in 2012. The Walking Dead wasn't at its height ratings-wise. Now it's still doing okay, but it's been dropping. We're not seeing a lot of hype from zombie-based video games. We're not seeing a lot of that kind of stuff. The zombie stuff isn't gone, but it's resting right now. And then you've got contracts, and you've got agreements and terms and all sorts of things and expiration dates and all that jazz. So it's probably what caused this thing to die. Now, if the rights revert back to Max Brooks, and I hope that they do, I hope that David Fincher and Brad Pitt go to Max Brooks and say, why don't we take this to Netflix? Why don't we take this to Amazon? Why don't we take this to Hulu? Why don't we take this somewhere where we can do this right? Where we can tell the story of Jerry Lane as he traverses the world and uncovers the mystery of the zombie apocalypse, as well as all the stories contained within. Because this is what Brooks learned from watching George A. Romero's films. The zombies weren't the main drive of those stories. It was the human story. It was a human experience. That is why those films are classic. That is why World War Z is classic. Because it's about what happened. It's about the aftermath. And it's about ultimately survival. So I, for one, hope this franchise survives. I, for one, hope they get this thing off the ground. And I, for one, hope we get to see it one goddamn day. Because the first movie, while not perfect, was fun. The third act, I blame that wholly on Damon Lindelof. But I blame a lot on him, so you can sue me if you don't like that. But anyway, your thoughts on this one, guys. Do you think that World War Z sequel should happen? Should they let it die? Should they just reboot it entirely? Should it go to a different production company? Your thoughts, your opinions. Let me know. Write them down. If you made it this far, type WWZ into the chat so I know. Thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, check us out on Patreon, and have yourself a great day. Peace out.